With all the crazy storm clouds roaming around, I thought I'd make a quick video on how to determine the difference between a dangerous wall cloud, a tornado cloud, and a shelf cloud. So let's crack right into it here. This is an image I captured back in Lincoln, Nebraska, here on the left. This is a shelf cloud back in 2015. And then this image on the right is a wall cloud from the Coleridge Day back in 2014. This specific area is the wall cloud hanging down under the storm base. And I'm going to show you how to spot the differences here. So the first thing to look for in shelf clouds is they're often in a really long line. They'll typically span from the north side to the south side of the horizon and expand across the entire sky, and they'll be moving in one direction away from the storm. The wall clouds are a lot smaller and more localized. Sometimes you'll have a big storm-based or a UFO type of storm like this, and under it you'll see this slanting thing extend down. That would be your wall cloud right there. And so that's the main difference, is the wall cloud's going to be a lot more small, localized. Those shelf clouds are going to be a lot more widespread, even though they look scary at times. The second thing is the shelf clouds will point away from the precipitation. This little zone you see here is actually the rain coming down. Behind it, sometimes you'll see lightning, and you'll see this kind of pointing away. As you can see, it's moving in the opposite direction of the precipitation. You'll often see this shelf or arc type of look that'll be pointing down and away from the precipitation. The wall clouds, on the other hand, will point towards the precipitation if there is a decent amount falling, especially. The precipitation is actually over here. You can see it extending down and it's pointing towards the rain. So that's another feature to look for. And then another thing is the shelf clouds, they will be located on the storm's leading edge. So you'll see this on radar like a line. They'll be out ahead of it or right on the leading edge of the storm. And so when these things move out ahead, sometimes you'll see these wispy clouds. They'll look kind of scary and all that, but usually are just wind. And you'll see this bubbling type of effect happen before it rains. That is indicative of a shelf cloud moving through. The wall cloud, on the other hand, those will be located under the notch or the mesocyclone of a thunderstorm, that rotation. And then you'll see this right here. This is a developing wall cloud or tail cloud feeding into this thing. Again, a little bit smaller than a shelf cloud. Now, wall clouds are typically associated with tornadoes. They don't always produce tornadoes, but they're much more dangerous. Meanwhile, a shelf cloud, those are usually just wind, and sometimes you get hail behind them. They're not going to produce tornadoes. The next thing to look for is the shelf clouds will have more of a motion of a roll effect. Sometimes you'll see them rotate and stuff, except they'll be rotating on a horizontal plane. So they'll be sinking like this and then rising up behind them. So they'll kind of roll. However, the wall clouds, they'll have more of a vertical type of rotation, rotating like this vertically, which would eventually lead to a tornado potentially. They'll also be moving up. So they'll have fast upward motions. So even though the wall cloud's pointing down towards the precipitation, you'll see this rising motion that rises up into the updraft like that. Sometimes you'll see clouds kind of come out of nowhere and rise very rapidly. That's how you determine the difference motion-wise. And shelf clouds are formed from the precipitation downdraft. So there's usually a ton of precipitation that kicks up air, and then it creates this wall, this long shelf line. This was shot back in Omaha a few years back. And then this is an example of a wall cloud, again, the Coleridge Day. You see this C shape here. These form from surface moisture, and they just essentially rotate and rise into the updraft, feeding the storm. Sometimes if you see a C-shaped type of thing develop, that's also a decent chance that you could see a tornado develop. This is actually a collar cloud that formed from a wall cloud with the Coleridge Day back in 2014. So those are some quick examples to determine the difference. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be making some more educational updates if you like these, and we'll see you soon.